Hi there, this is Heather of Shutterbug 101. Today we'll be going over the Sony A7 series, doing a walkthrough of the A7 III. Let's get started. The Sony A7 line, which includes the A7 I through 3, are the 24 megapixel full-frame cameras that Sony currently sells in their mirrorless line. The original A7 has 117 autofocus points, 3-inch tilting LCD screen, has a continuous drive of 5 frames per second, HD video, a microphone and headphone port, built-in Wi-Fi, and environmentally sealed. The A7 II body had a makeover that carried on to the A7 III and added the built-in stabilization. The A7 III has had the most changes so far in the series, with added touchscreen, an updated sensor, has 693 focus points rather than the previous model's 117, is 10 frames per second rather than the 5 frames per second, added 4K video, and a bigger battery to extend the battery life. Although the body style on the first A7 is different, the buttons, dials, and doors are extremely similar, so I will be doing the walkthrough on the newer body style. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start going over the camera here. Now, this camera does either come with a body-only option, or it does come with an optional kit lens, which is the 28-70 lens. Unfortunately, I don't have the lens with me this time around, but it is a very simple lens. You know, it has a focus ring and a zoom ring. No switches on that lens to control manual focus or autofocus or stabilization. That will all be done in the camera, and that'll be things that we go over today. So as you can see right here on the front of the camera, we have the opening where the lens is going to be. Now to change out the lenses, you will hold this button down, turn, and take that on off. Now to put a lens back on, you're typically going to see a white dot instead of a line here. And you'll line that up with the white dot here. And then you will turn until it clicks. Now this is just the body cap, so you're actually not going to see, you're actually not going to hear any clicking for the cap itself. Also, you can see here we have this little mark on the grip. This is actually going to be your infrared sensor, so if you had a remote control, you could just point it at the front and it would take the picture for you. You also have your adjustment knob here, which we will go over more when it comes to things on our mode dial when we move to the top. Going to the side of the camera here. Now, the A7 III is the first of the A7 series to receive a 2-card slot versus just 1-card option. So to open this specific one, you're going to just push down and it gives you 2-card slot option. And on the lid here, you can see that in slot 1, it does support a grade 2 card versus slot 2, which just supports a grade 1 card. Now this is, yeah, it can be fairly confusing because slot 1 supports slot 2, or slot 1 supports grade 2, slot 2 supports grade 1. I don't know why they didn't kind of flip-flop that, so it's like slot 1 grade 1, slot 2 grade 2, you know, for you to remember. But essentially, when you have a grade 2 card, it has 2 set of contacts on that memory card, so it allows the reading and writing speeds to be much faster. So that's going to be used for raw photos, for video, you know, any of that. It's just going to be a faster option of a card. But at least you have 2-card slot options. Now on the A7 II and the A7, it's going to have a door that you're going to push and it's going to pop out, and it's just 1 card slot, and it'll support grade 1 only. It also identifies that it does have NFC and Wi-Fi built in. And when we move to the other side of the camera here, we're going to have all these doors. So in this first door here, if we open that up, that is going to be our microphone in that door. And we're going to have our USB here, which is going to be either for charging or for firmware upgrades to transfer images. This cord will come with the camera. And you have your USB-C, which is actually going to be a faster component in transferring, charging, all of that. So actually I think it's going to come with this cord here rather than this one, at least for this camera. The older models are going to have this port only. They won't have the USB-C. And then in the other door here, we have our HDMI, which you can connect to a television to show your You can connect your HDMI cable here to show a slideshow of your pictures after you've gone on a trip, or say you've just shot the ceremony of a wedding, you want to show in the reception some of the highlights, you know, something like that. And then we have a headphone jack here as well when we're doing that video. And then they are pretty flush to the surface, which is a really nice design. Then of course on the bottom here, we do have our universal screw mount, and then we have a bigger battery on the A7 III. Now on the A7 II and the A7, it will be a W battery versus a Z. But yeah, so this is gonna give you more battery life, just because, and this will give you more battery life, this model here. Now that can be very important, especially if you do long events, because in a situation where you do have your mirrorless camera, mirrorless does run on battery. Mirrorless runs out of battery fairly quickly because it's constantly giving visual to the back screen or through the viewfinder electronically. So it does run out the battery quite quickly. So a bigger battery in this model does help in that situation. Otherwise, for the other models, you just want to get extra batteries. So moving to the top of the camera here, we're going to go ahead and start just, you know, this way, going this way. This is going to be the built-in mic, so, you know, at least you can get general sound if you don't have a mic to be very directional quite yet. It's going to be our hot shoe or cold shoe, depending on what you're using it for. Hot shoe for an external flash. Now this camera does not have a built-in flash to it, so if you want to have a flash and get some more light to those hard lighting situations, you do have to buy an external with a diffuser. And then you can also attach your microphone up here, an LED light, whatever you want to use that for. It's just a little hot shoe mount. Then we have our mode dial here. So starting on auto, it does have an auto mode. So auto mode is letting the camera take full control. There's no judgment, you know, going on if you are brand new to the Sony world, you're brand new to full frame, just to this body in general, and you just want to learn about the camera. However, you did invest in this camera. It can do more than auto, so I definitely recommend stepping out into your manual modes as you learn to get comfortable with this camera. So your P mode is going to be program. Now, the next video will be a program mode video to kind of cover why you would use program instead of auto. But essentially, it's going to be auto. It's going to give you that automatic recommendation, but allow you to change other settings. So it's a good way to start learning about these other manual modes. Now your A mode is going to be aperture priority. That's going to be how much light is A is going to be your aperture priority. So it's going to control how much light you let into the camera and its depth of field. The S is going to be your shutter priority. That's going to control how much time you let the light in. So if you want to do long exposures and get the Milky Way, or if you want to capture movement in the middle of the day, like you know, someone playing baseball or something like that, that's going to be to control speed. And of course, it's going to be your full manual mode. This is where you're controlling everything and anything. So if you're just starting out with this camera, I don't recommend jumping into that mode right away. Manual mode is going to be very helpful in situations where you're shooting in a studio setting. It's also going to help when you're just trying to fine-tune some other settings that you shot in another mode. So just keep those in mind. 1 and 2 are going to be essentially shortcuts. So say you were shooting in a studio setting, very similar to how I shoot videos every week. When it comes to my lighting, it never changes, so the setting is never going to change. So once I find that perfect setting of taking pictures, I can actually save it to 1 and 2. That way if I go hiking, I go to an event, whatever it may be, and then I return to my studio setting later, I don't have to try and refigure out the settings again. I can just go to my 1 or 2 setting. Now we do have a film strip here, which is your video mode. Now this is going to give you a little bit more control over video aspects, as you may have guessed. It shows you mic controls. You can control just different very specific aspects of video, but if you're maybe not into video, you might do a video every now and then, like in the moment. You can be on auto, you can be on P mode, A mode, S mode, whatever, and still do a video by pushing your video record button, which on this model is actually right up here. Now on the A7 and A7 II, it's actually located on the side here. So as long as you can find that red button there, that's going to be push once to start recording, push again to stop recording. So the S and Q mode is going to stand for slow and quick. Now this is going to again be another video mode. So while this is kind of your regular video, slow and quick is going to be able to export your videos from 1 frame per second to 120 frames per second out of the camera in slow motion or doing like time-lapse video. So that's going to be able to give you control over those aspects and not have to do so much in like post-processing or something like that. Your scene mode are going to be other auto modes. So if we put it to scene mode, you go to your function button here, which is going to actually be like your quick menu. You see down here that that's going to be our scene selection. So if we select that, you'll be able to select portrait, sports, macro, landscape, sunset, night scene, and night portrait. So these are just going to be auto modes, but they're going to be very specific to the situation that you're going to be shooting in. So, you know, if you want to play with your camera, just kind of see what the camera can do in comparison to how you're shooting it on P mode, you know, that's what photography is all about. It's all about experimentation, seeing what you like, seeing, you know, what you can do and how you can manipulate the light and your subjects. Now, when it comes, the next thing we have here is naturally going to be our on and off switch. So you can just on, off and on. This, of course, is going to be your shutter button. You push halfway down to focus, push all the way down to take a picture. The C2 button and C1 button are going to be custom buttons. So you can actually program those accordingly to whatever you want them to do. Let's see, at the moment, they are set to white balance and focus area. So focus area is going to be where you want the focus points to be. Wide is going to be considering the whole area. Zone is going to be kind of like more centered, more to the left, more to the right. The very center or flexible spot. You know, so you can be very specific with your points there. And of course, that white balance, C1, is going to be the temperature of light that you're dealing with. Now, I would just keep it on auto white balance for the majority of what you're shooting, just because, you know, cameras these days are really good at determining what is white. Like, I'm actually shooting this video with a A7 II, and my white matte is indeed very, very white. So, you know, it does a pretty good job at getting accurate color. And let's see here, this is going to be our exposure dial. So by going +1, +2, +3, it's actually going to make the scene brighter. When you go -1, -2, -3, it's going to make the scene darker. So it's going to be a really easy way to adjust your brightness and darkness without changing any major settings. And of course we have our other adjustment dial right here. Now on P mode, and actually it's not really going to change much because I don't have a lens on it, but one of these would change shutter speed. Well, actually P mode, if you change one of these, it's going to change either shutter speed or aperture, and the camera is going to compensate for the other. Now if you're in A mode, it's going to change aperture. If you're in S mode, it's going to change shutter speed, so you can see how it's changing right down here. And then if you're in M mode, one of these is going to change shutter speed, and then this front one up here that we discussed, it's actually going to change the aperture. So now we'll kind of go to the back of the camera. We're going to start getting into more of this stuff that's going on. Okay, so we have a C3 button, which is custom 3, so you can program this one as well. Now currently it looks like, let's see, the lens is not attached correctly, not supported. So I'm not sure exactly what this is supposed to do at the moment, but apparently it needs a lens to do so. We have our menu, which we will go over here in a moment. We have our electronic viewfinder. So this is a sensor right up here. So if you bring your face up close to it and it trips that sensor, it actually turns this on. And then when you bring your face away, it turns this guy back on. We've already gone over our video record button. We have our autofocus on. This is going to be our back button focus here if we would like to use that or program it. You also see that it has a little magnifying glass with a plus by it, which just means that when we play back our picture, so if we push the plus button here and we want to zoom in, that'll allow us to zoom in to our photograph. Then we have our auto exposure lock. That's going to control different, or lock in different lighting when we have this held down. Then we have our joystick. So say for example you had your focus mode on, or you had your focus area on that flexible point where you can move that point around specifically. The little joystick will allow you to do so, and the A7 III actually has touchscreen available, so you'll be able to do that as well. The FN, which is your function button, this is going to be your quick menu. So right now I'm in P mode, which makes all of these available to change. So now what these are is going to be your drive mode, how many pictures you can take when it takes, or what the drive mode is going to be when you hit the shutter button, what exactly it's going to do when taking the picture. So the single square is going to be a single shooting mode. One picture will be taken when you click and hold that button down. When you go down, it's continuous shooting. So if you click and hold the button down, it's going to take 10 frames per second on this camera. Then of course you have your timer and your bracketing. So, you know, if you want to race the clock, be in a group photo, if you are in a tough lighting situation where you wanted to bracket and take a picture that's slightly brighter, what it recommends slightly darker, you could do that all on your drive mode here. So your focus mode is actually going to control how the camera will focus. Now, it is grayed out, as you can see, because I don't have a lens on it. So the choices that it would give you is going to be MF, which is manual focus, AFS, which is autofocus single for single subjects, AFC for autofocus continuous for moving subjects, or AFA, which is autofocus auto, where you let the camera decide between AFS and AFC. Your focus area, which we've already kind of gone over, that's going to be your custom 2 button right out of the box. You have your exposure, which you can also control with the dial here. So when you have your ISO and you do want to change it, I can't change it at the moment because I don't have a lens on it. You can set it to auto and then have it set to a limit. And we have our metering mode where it's taking the light from. So multi is going to be the whole image. Center is naturally going to take the lighting, whatever's in the center. And you have spots, so you can actually move that spot around to a specific area that you want it to take the light from. That's the most important subject. The next one is going to be different flash modes for when you have a flash up here. Also flash compensation if you want it to be brighter or darker. Your white balance, which of course is your C1 button as well. Creative style, which will just give you sort of filters, so like standard color, vivid color, black and white, that sort of thing. You can actually choose a priority card slot if you would like. And then this is just letting you know your shooting mode on here. Now notice if I switch it to auto and I go to my quick menu here, it gives me a lot less that I can do because the camera has full control. So just keep that in mind when it comes to playing with your camera. Now pushing on the actual dial here will give us some shortcuts as well. So this one that says DISP is going to be display. So it's actually going to change the display of how we see the screen here. So histogram, level, just information, information surrounding your subject, or just very, very basic here. A lot of people just like this basic function here. That way, I mean, you see, your battery mode will pop up when you're ready to take a picture. You get your ISO, your exposure, shutter speed, and aperture as well. If you want to change your ISO, you can also push right on the dial here to change that. And to change the sensitivity, you can actually go over and, you know, for this camera, let's see, set it to like 6400 as kind of the maximum for it on average if you're going to play with your auto and just focus more on your shutter speed and aperture, which is totally fine. And if you push left on the dial, that's going to access your drive mode, just like in your quick menu. And if you push down, right now that's not going to do anything. I do believe that that is also programmable as well. Yeah, so, and then of course we have a custom 4 button, which turns your touch operation on or off at the moment. And then if you're on your play mode, you can delete pictures from here. And naturally, I don't have a memory card in it, so it's not going to delete anything. But that'll pretty much sum up the outside of the camera. A very simple layout, easy to learn, at least I find for myself. You know, so just practice with it, and we'll start to get familiar. And then now we're going to go through the menu. You know, get into the fun stuff here. So we'll start with, let's see, page 1. Okay, so getting into the menu, a lot of these you're really not going to change on a regular basis. And the whole point of having your custom buttons, your quick menu, is so you won't ever actually have to go into the menu itself. So that is something to keep in mind. Also, the star, the last tab that we're seeing on our menu here, is going to be My Menu. So if there were things that maybe weren't on your quick menu that, you know, you couldn't put on your custom menu here, you can actually create your own little menu tab so everything's kind of quick access, and the things that you're never going to use or the things you're never going to touch, you know, you don't have to keep scrolling through to get to them. So just kind of starting here, a few of these I'm just going to kind of skip through because you'll never change them, or it's things we've already covered. So the first thing here we're going to see is file format. So this camera does shoot in RAW, and JPEG, and just JPEG. Now, depending on how much time you have to edit your pictures is really going to determine if you're going to shoot in RAW, and JPEG, or just JPEG. If you're just getting started with this camera, you've never edited pictures before, and you're just playing around, JPEG is just a fine file to have it on. Now, if you want to get into Lightroom and that sort of editing there, and you're shooting a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, shooting it on RAW or just RAW and JPEG to have a backup does really well as well. Now, something to keep in mind is that your RAW files are 4 times larger than your JPEGs, so it will take up more room in your cards. Now, fortunately, you have 2 card slots, so at least it's not a huge deal, at least with this model here. Of course, you can decide if you want your RAW compressed or uncompressed. Your JPEG quality you want to keep on extra fine. Image size, you always want it on large. And then aspect ratio is really up to you. 3:2 is going to be more of like a 8:10 or 16:20. 16:9 is going to be more of a 8:12, 16:24, so it's going to be a little bit longer. 3:2 is really the most common though. Of course, see, that's just talking crop sensors. If we go on to the second page here, I would put the long exposure noise reduction off, especially if you're going to get into raw images. It's something that you can do after the fact, and it'll allow you to keep taking pictures much faster if you're doing long exposures. High ISO noise reduction, keep on normal, keep the color space on sRGB. Let's see here. Scene selection, drive mode, bracket settings. Again, all of these are in your quick menu. Let's see. Focus area, focus settings. Autofocus illuminator, so if you want that green box to show up, that sort of thing there. Let's see. Face and eye autofocus set. So you can actually set it to human or animal, which is super cool. Now this is going to be very unique to this body, not the A7 II or A7 at this time. But that's what makes this one pretty cool as well. So if you do a lot of animal photography, this model will probably be the best out of the three. Let's see here. So you can, control your exposure, your ISO, spot metering, your flash. Again, everything here you can change in your quick menu. Anti-flicker shooting, so if you're taking pictures and you want to try and avoid the flicker of fluorescent lights, you can turn that on. Let's see here. And then we go right into menu 2, which is going to be your movie settings here. They're going to be extremely similar to what you're seeing for your photo menu. You can change your file formats. So you got 4K, you have HD, and then AVHC is going to be more for your computer. These guys are going to be more for your living room television. So it really just depends on what you want to shoot, and you can control your frames here as well. So you can change your audio level display, audio out timing, your wind noise reduction, silent shooting. Shooting without a card, I would pretty much disable that. That way, if you go out and you're anything like me and you forgot to put a card in, if that is enabled, it's going to allow you to take pictures, and you'll go back and you'll go, oh, how did those come out? And it'll go, sorry, I don't have a card in there. I didn't actually save anything. So if you have that disabled, if you go and try and take a picture, it's going to say, hey, there's no card in here. Better put a card in. And so that'll prevent any that'll prevent any disappointment from happening. I know it's happened to me. You have your steady shot, which is the in-body stabilization on the A7 III and II. Your zoom, never do digital zoom, do optical zoom only. You can change your display when it comes to your finder and monitor. If you want to primarily shoot through this versus the screen, or the screen instead of the viewfinder, you want it to stay on auto. That's how you're going to change it there. You can do grid lines to help your composition. You can do, you can change your custom keys, your custom menus. Then we get into the network menu, which is going to control the Wi-Fi of it. So you can send photos and videos to your smartphone or your smart device while you're on vacation or at an event, if you want to share those with friends and family, or else you can use your smartphone or smart device as a remote control as well. Now, when you do use it as a remote control for this device, it does only save photos in JPEG. It doesn't save them in RAW, so it is something to keep in mind. Now, when you're not using your Wi-Fi setting, or you don't think you're going to be using it anytime soon, I would turn the airplane mode on, because that's actually going to save you quite a bit of battery. That goes for all the models there. You can change your Wi-Fi settings, Bluetooth settings, reset those. And then we get into our playback menu, which is just going to allow you to protect images from being deleted, rotate, deleting. You can do a slideshow. Let's see. And then we got our setup menu, which controls your monitor brightness, your viewfinder brightness. That's going to control your display quality, touch operation. It's going to control HDMI settings, USB settings, language, date and time. It's all the very technical aspects of your camera. You can change the folder name, check on your version for your firmware, see if you need any updates. And you can also reset your settings in case you start playing with your menus, you did something, you don't know how to change it back. You just can go reset your settings and it should revert back. And then we have my menu that we kind of went on that I kind of went over at the beginning, where you can add certain things to your menu that you think that you're going to change more often than having to dig through all of these tabs. And of course, this screen does have a nice tilting screen as well. I don't want to miss that. So you can get some nice, interesting angles and whatnot. The biggest complaint out of these Sonys that I hear is that they haven't gotten that flip out screen, which is just so commonly desired as of late. both for video, for selfies, whatever it may be. And I'm hoping that in the next upcoming models that Sony hears these concerns and these wants and these demands, and that they do it. They did in the A6400 as of recently, where the screen does flip up, but I think a lot of people are wanting the flip out and they're wanting that extra protection. So hopefully Sony will design something that is nice and sleek and goes really well to meet those demands. Other than that, that kind of just sums up the A7 series. Very simple, very easy to use, perfect for the hobbyist that wants that nice full frame and something that's going to be really nice and low light. It's just a really good all-around camera to have. For me personally, I have the A7 II. I'm wanting to get into the A7 III, mainly because, that occasionally I like to take pictures of animals, so, that would be really cool to have that nice animal eye focus and have all those little extra features there. But it does, depend on what you're going to use it for. If you don't take pictures of animals, you don't do a lot of speed shooting, A7 II or A7 might just be perfect for you. So do a little bit of research. The website I like to use to kind of compare all the different models is going to be dpreview.com. You can compare different models on there. Other than that, if you have any questions, concerns, anything that maybe specifically about the menu that I didn't take the time to go over, please let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if you have a specific camera or tips and tricks you would like me to cover, also let me know in the comments below, or send me a message. And yeah, that's about it. Until next time, keep your eye out for inspiration, Shutterbugs. Bye!